Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Arroyo Live. From the Pasadena Media Center, I'm Joe Carbonetta. This program is produced by Pasadena Media to help enrich the community through informative and meaningful conversation. Remember, you can share your questions or comments with us anytime at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org. The Lightbringer Project is a nonprofit organization founded in 1990 to bring unrecognized contemporary artists and their creative resources into the mainstream. Today, the organization is widely known for its arts and educational programs targeting underserved inner-city youth. Tonight, we speak with some of the members of the project about their work and how recent events have complicated their ongoing mission. Please join me for tonight's Arroyo Live. This evening, I'm joined by members of the Lightbringer Project, Managing Director Patty Hurley, Program and Classroom Coordinator Angelina Coppola, and Kat Ward, Head of Events and Special Projects. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here this evening. I'd like to take a moment to have you introduce yourselves a little further to our viewers at home. Tom, if it's all right, I'd like to begin with you.
Sure. Well, I am one of the original people who founded Lightbringer Project way back when in another galaxy far, far away. Actually, this galaxy a long time ago. And it really began with a simple idea. Wouldn't it be interesting to bring artists in our community kind of out into the lap of the public and to see what positive things that the arts could bring to the community as an important part of our quality of life. And we began with a few people, one of whom is here. Patricia Hurley was one of the founders as well. And there was some others, and some of us came and went along the way. But all that said and done, it's like amazing to look back on the journey as it certainly was different than we imagined it, but actually even greater and more gratifying.
Patty, let's move on to you.
Well, thank you. I was raised in the Midwest and came out here to go to art school. I went to Art Center College of Design, and soon after graduation, I kind of met up with some Lightbringer folks, people who are in the midst of creating Lightbringer, and we, including Tom, and we got on board and started to imagine what this whole thing would be. My job is really to manage all the projects, which include educational programs, special events, and all kinds of things, parades, art shows, performing arts events, you name it.
I'm Angelina Coppola. I'm the program coordinator here at Lightbringer Project. I help with all of our educational programs with Pasadena Unified Public Schools, as well as Los Angeles Unified. I help to bring in creative professionals into the classroom, different career pathway opportunities, and it's just really a pleasure to be able to work with all the different art teachers and English teachers and help to provide creative opportunities to young people. So that's my role here at Lightbringer.
All right, thank you. And Kat Ward, if you would take a moment to tell our viewers about yourself, please.
Hi. Thank you for having us. I first met Tom and Patty when I was volunteering and working for someone who was involved with the first Lit Fest Pasadena, the free literary festival that's been going on since 2012. And I've kind of been hooking up with them a little bit here and there ever since. And they brought me on in 2019 to coordinate and manage the Lit Fest in May of 2019. And I've been with them ever since. So I work in managing Lit Fest Pasadena and the Chalk Festival and the Doodah Parade, some of more of their events, whereas like Angelina's in more of the school programs, I'm more of the events. And then sometimes we have special projects Hey, that's built into my title. We do have special projects that I work with Patty on, and Patty and Tom and everybody. So
Well, welcome to you. And again, thank you all for being here this evening. I'd like to jump right into the discussion. And I obviously would want to start out by asking about the Lightbringer Project. What is it and how did it begin? And I would certainly love to hear everybody's take on this. Tom, I'm going to go to you first as the founder, but I would love to get everyone's insight on this.
Oh, great. Well, like I said before, I was always just personally interested in the arts, and I write. I was interested in, I've always been interested in visual artists and was around them and hanging around in their studios and hanging around the famous coffee house, the Espresso Bar in Pasadena. That's where I actually met Patricia Hurley. And I just felt like the need to do something in my community. And I thought that the arts were a really great window to enter into. And then I thought that the artists have so many resources that they have to be able to educate, bring people together, to heal, to do all the things that we know the arts do, that it was just a kind of an irresistible urge, really. And a lot of it from the beginning was an intuitive process. It wasn't like there was definitely not a strategic plan, but I'll finish my part by saying we always from the beginning wanted to keep it small so we could be flexible, so we could respond to things in the present and be able to do something. If something came like 2 months from now, there's a great opportunity for us, we'll call Kat up. Hey, that sometimes special project, it's happening, but we wanted to be able to be, instead of institutional, I will say, to be, more aerodynamic.
interesting way to put it.
Tom, I have to say this before we continue, and again, I would like to get everyone else's input on this question as well about the origins of the Lightbringer Project and its mission. But in your response just now, I had a flashback. You mentioned the E-Bar, which is a name I've not heard in a million years, and so that's very remarkable that the beginnings go back quite some time.
Yeah, it's actually within walking distance of here. And really the E-Bar was a little bit responsible for launching a lot of things. I remember, a lot of artists kind of coming in and through there. And it was almost like an extended family, a kind of a Pasadena's little bohemia, if you will. But I always remember being in there. That was the first office of Lightbringer Project, okay? So behind me, and I never spoke to him, was our partner, Jervy Turvalon, who's a big part of LitFest Pasadena. And he was writing his first novel, Understand This, right behind me, but I never wanted to talk to him. And he never wanted to talk to me. It was just like, and the payphone was our telephone.
Nice.
I'm trying to envision how you were able to accomplish any work at all with the chess games that were always going on.
Well, there's a lot of quiet around chess. So a lot of, and then we kind of picked up on, life, chess, strategy making, all that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, very good. That ties all together quite nicely then. Patricia, how about you? Your insights into the Lightbringer Project.
Well, I was a frequent habitué of the Espresso Bar. I would go there during art school too, because it seemed to be one of the only places you could just sit for hours and hours and drink tons of coffee. And there's that. There was a Loch Ness Monster pub, and this is where all my friends would go. And we would basically just read our art books and dream up our next art making experience, our assignments. And then, they had the music at night and stuff like that. So it was a great getaway to the kind of hardcore stuff that was happening at Art Center. But beyond all that, Lightbringer, we were very interested in the history in Pasadena, and we kind of wanted to focus on that a little bit for ourselves, to give us our own sense of knowledge of our place in the history. And so we went out and did a lot of interviews of local artists to ask them, what's your connection to Pasadena? Why Pasadena? Why does Pasadena have so much history? And this recognition for being such an arts place. And we just turned over a lot of rocks and discovered quite a lot of information and met a myriad of people, all different kinds of people, all different age groups. And we decided, well, maybe we should write a book about all this. And, long story short, we ended up deciding that that was too long a project, that we wanted to just kind of get our boots on the ground and just start doing things to display what is the current culture of the arts in Pasadena, and not talk about the past to bring the past forward, but start now and go forward and see what we can do that's new and unique, also fitting into the culture
I
here.
just want to add to that it was that oral history project that really got us going, because we really saw that, oh, we're the next place in line of arts activists in Pasadena. And we saw that there was this wonderful legacy of arts educators here and artists. That's where we discovered that it was really a haven for artists. And when we were talking to the artists, we realized they were telling the story of the community. We go there and say, tell us about your artwork. They tell us about Pasadena, the Pasadena area. They tell us about growth and development over the years. Talked to a lot of, we call them senior artists, and they said, no, we're experienced artists. And so we learned, how to approach them, and we listened. And I think that was the great motivator, hearing who came before us.
I'm hoping that we can get everyone else to jump in on this conversation as well. Angelina, you've been notably silent so far, and Kat, you have not mentioned your thoughts on this, on the Lightbringer project itself and the programs that go on. But I would very much like to hear everyone's input on this.
Yeah, so I got involved with Lightbringer. I met Tom at a friend's art show, actually, and they published one of my short stories, and formerly known as Literature for Life, now known as Locavore Lit LA, which is a online literary journal that Lightbringer Project produces, that publishes works by local writers here in Los Angeles, accompanied by original artwork by local visual artists. And so I just continued to get more involved from there, and now I'm heading up help to coordinate all the educational programs. So yeah, those are one of our programs with education. We also do work with all the Pasadena Unified High Schools to bring in guest speakers for panels, help to coordinate field trips to different creative industries to kind of see what a day in the life is like there, a really boots on the ground experience. We help to coordinate master workshops in the schools where we have leading creative professionals in different industries, whether it be, music or dance or performing arts or visual arts or graphic design, come in to teach the students about really what the cutting edge practices and projects are within those industries, to show them that they too can go into these industries if they're interested. And this is kind of what the platform and landscape is like. We have all types of educational program, everything from the literary arts, such as Locavore Lit LA, to our Room 13 program, which we do with middle school and elementary schools, which is an after-school art program, and also in-school art program, depending on the school site, which is led by a artist in residence, a working artist who's currently, producing work, coming into the classroom and teaching students about different mediums. We really do have a buffet of different programs available, and it's really great to kind of orchestrate and see them all work together in a symphony.
Oh, well, and Kat, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I guess thinking about this collectively and about Lightbringer, between the literary festival, the Chalk Festival, the parade, and the Doodah Parade, and the school programs that Angelina is talking to, I feel that what really encapsulates working, especially this last year during COVID, encapsulates what Lightbringer does is the EFTA program, the Expressing Feelings Through Art. And it works with, I'm correct, I think, Patty and Tom, with high schoolers.
Yes.
And art teachers work with them about, and it's kids who are maybe having a little bit of a rough time, and they work with them to express their feelings through art, and it's through photography or drawing or painting, but it's also a written statement as well. And we put that together. Obviously, we couldn't have an exhibit in person this year, and we put together a film of it. And to me, watching that film and watching what the students created and what they wrote in response to 2020 made me realize how valuable these arts and education programs are for this public school children. And to me, that's very impressive. That's very impressive, and that's what I like working for Lightbringer.
Well, Kathy, I think you've come closest to touching on a subject that I was hoping to delve deeper into in the bio that's listed on the website for the Lightbringer project. Among the things that are mentioned is obviously the foundation's notable for its education and the programs that it offers, but one of the groups that it specifically targets are underprivileged youth. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Like our student constituency is all diverse, low income, and in Pasadena and throughout Los Angeles County.
So I was hoping we could talk a little bit more about some of those programs and what type of outreach Lightbringer is there to provide.
Well, I think as someone who came from an arts background, we really want to reach all age groups. So we work with elementary, middle school, and high school students. And Angelina gave some exposure to what we're trying to do with the high school students who are kind of have their eyes on the prize now. What is their future going to be? So we're trying to help them find their way and discover themselves in the process. So what we do in the earlier age groups is kind of a cradle to I'm not going to say grave, but cradle to older life. We want them to discover themselves through gaining self-confidence, through following their creative skill sets, so developing their skill sets, and learning how to communicate better through means of the arts, through literary and visual arts. And we have our Room 13 program, which is in elementary and middle school and high school, where it's an open creative studio, and students select to go and be in it. And they do their own projects, and they're led by an artist in residence who's an adult influence in the room, who's a teaching artist who kind of lets the children guide their own education and their own learning in the arts. And we don't give them just crayons, we give them pastels, paint, all the forms of media that could help them pursue their self-expression in the different variety of media. And so you can go from elementary to middle to high school, developing that internal language for yourself, and in the meantime, making friendships, that last all the way through. And then we also have, our LA Futures program, which Angelina talked a little about.
I think in that lifeline, it's interesting to think about that as like a lifeline, and that you, when you get to the senior high school level, where we have a lot of arts education programs, really college and career pathway programs, that we get to a point with students where we can help them connect the dots. Maybe those students who don't have as many resources, but then have our mentorship and the wonderful mentorship of their teachers and other programmers, and be able to connect the dots from where they are to college, vocational training, or programs that will get them to their career aspirations. And of course, we're interested in the creative industries and all the different disciplines that are possible. But I think that it really is a lifeline, and we try to think of it like that. So kind of a scaffolding up, if you will, ultimately the prize, I think, is workforce development. And the kids aren't as, the kids in public schools have to be competitive to be able to get into the same colleges and careers that everybody else that is not in a public school is aiming for. And to do that, they need some extra resources. So in putting together the community, which is Lightbringer Industry, and we have business and industry partners with the schools, it's a really powerful triangle that helps to accomplish that, and also like ultimately help students be competitive. And again, all of that in line with our ultimate mission, which is workforce development in the creative industries.
Mm-hmm.
The project began in 1990. What was reception like then, and how is awareness of the program now?
I got to take that one. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be talking too much. But way back then,
We're used to it.
I really have to take that one. Way back then, there was an article in the LA Times, and it was about the Peter Norton Foundation. And he was one of the largest collectors of contemporary art in North America. He had been a trustee of MoCA. And he was the guy who did the Norton Utilities program that you have on your computers, and became enormously wealthy. And the foundation still exists. But in the article, he said, much to his program officers' regret, "We are the foundation for the weird and despised." So by asking about how we were received, I think you could answer that by saying, how do we think about ourselves too? We immediately applied for a grant for them because we said that is right where we belong. We are the weird and despised. They actually gave us a grant, actually, too. But it was difficult in the beginning because I think, first of all, people thought automatically when we said Lightbringer Project, thought we were a new age mystical cult group. And then, but over time, I mean, I'll let everybody else answer, but I really feel it's important. It was humbling. It was honestly humbling, and it certainly didn't make us rich. And as career development, that wasn't necessarily one of the great choices, but it is now. It was the most gratifying experience in the world to finally find yourself where you need to be at the right time and place, and be valued in your community as a really important resource. And people do that. We're still humble, but we're grateful. And it's been a long, strange trip.
And I think too that in our journey, it was a very organic process. So it's kind of like you forget half of the program sometimes because they're in different parts of your brain, depending on what time of year it is, or what else you're working on at that moment in time. But we're total plate spinners here at Lightbringer Project. We're jugglers and we're plate spinners.
That's true.
And as we grew, we took on projects either from different ways. One way would be somebody would ask us to take their project because they couldn't handle it. It grew too big and they didn't know what to do with it anymore. In terms of the expressing feelings through art program, this is something that came to us that way. And then there were others where a friend of ours would have discovered this extremely unique program that's catching fire in Scotland called Room 13. And they're like, why doesn't USA have a Room 13? And so they're like, we'll sponsor you to go to Scotland to learn about this. So of course we go there, we come back, and we start a whole bunch in the USA. So, and then an intern that we have says, have you seen these artists in Europe doing these chalk murals and making all this money as street art? And then we said, no, but we're trying to figure out a project where we can incorporate all the artists we know one time a year in a big reunion where they can all just meet and greet each other and build arts community. And so that's how Chalk started, the Chalk Festival. And it's just one thing and another. So I think the organic growth of the organization is kind of that in itself, it's like a tree of life, I guess you could say, is how I look at it, and how right now it's just the programs themselves are sprouting to be bigger in and of themselves. So yeah, I'm very excited every day to come to work and think about what we're doing that day. It's always different.
That's
Sort of piggybacking off of what Tom and Patty spoke to, I think Lightbringer Project is really sort of we're all kind of out of the box thinkers. And I think we tend to approach project and programs, different than what might be the normative paradigm. And I think in doing that, it really helps to keep things engaging, not only for us personally, but also the different students and teachers we serve, and asking everyone each year, like, what are you interested, what projects are you doing, and really catering and customizing things each year to make it different. And I think that really kind of speaks to our adaptability and also sort of our quirkiness, if you will.
I think what Angelina is really too describing is something that I think is really important, and that's servant leadership. Asking other people what they need and finding the skills, gathering them together, making it happen. And that's important.
Well, a moment ago, Patty mentioned organic growth. What is the awareness of the project right now? How broadly is the reach of the program, and is there more that can be done to raise awareness?
There's the landscape in Los Angeles County. I mean, it's a world unto itself, and I think there's always more you can do. I mean, all of the things that could be done through the arts with all of the people who need those things done is like, a mile long. And I think all of the arts together and all of the wonderful other arts organizations, our colleagues, we're about, a block long to a mile long of possibility. So I think there's always so much to do. We serve thousands and thousands of young people in public schools, and we've pretty much, we could grow exponentially, but one of the important things to do is to manage your growth so that you're really providing quality first, not quantity. So while we are really interested in always all these new things that we can do, there's a method to the madness where we try to think about scope and scale.
Okay. Well, the next.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Something to add to this, please, by all means, do continue.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the networks that we have too, like for example, with Pasadena Chalk Festival and like Pasadena, and even the educational programs, like there is sort of a fluidity between the two of them, where you have artists and authors that participate in those events coming into the classroom. So they're not necessarily stagnant entities. They're also like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, where they complement each other really well, because it fosters these huge networks of artists and writers that then participate in all of our different educational programming, which is a really beautiful thing in relation to growth.
The peanut butter and jelly sandwich analogy has just made me hungry.
We're big on food.
The next question that I think comes to mind is that obviously we, along with most of the country, have spent the last 15 months in a state of lockdown and with everything more or less on hold thanks to the COVID pandemic. And certainly we've heard of the negative effect that has had on so many businesses, on lives in general, the mental and emotional impact. How has that affected the Lightbringer project?
I mean, just real quick.
Go ahead.
I think I'd actually like to hear what everybody says about this too. I think everybody has a little bit of a different take because how it affected us personally. But for our constituents, it was really hard not having direct engagement. And I'll quote a teacher who said, when I'm in the classroom and I see students in the 3D world, the world we used to live in a second, I can tell what that student's bringing into the classroom, what in terms of their feelings and their emotional presence. And I'm able to maybe go up and just put a hand on their shoulder or say something to kind of draw them out. When you're working with people online virtually, you really can't do that. It's very difficult for people who are mentors. Essentially, we're mentors, in everything we do, to be able to have and make an impact when you're removed from people in the world you work in. And I think that we found some ways programmatically to make it interesting and exciting for young people. But I think it was especially hard, I noticed, with teachers. I think students were really having difficulty. They were struggling. There was some depression. There was challenges, mental and behavioral challenges, no doubt. But I think also for the teachers, it was really, I don't want to say depressing, but it was certainly distressing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think too, I'm gonna have Kat follow up my comments, but because she and I work very closely, especially on our events that were turned into virtual. Without our knowledge of how to do that, we had to reinvent the wheel, and everybody here on this call was involved in the reinvention process. But one thing I just want to tip my hat to all those people out there that helped us, because people came out of the woodwork, from video editors who were college students to people who worked in the film industry, like Vince, who would lend us their extreme professional talent and abilities for nothing, just to make people happy. In the case of Duda, and just people picking up the slack for others, being kind of open to the fact that not everyone's in their full capacity. So the tenderness that we were all experiencing, individually, and we were all very emotionally connected to one another, and not putting too much pressure, but at the same time, there was quite a bit of pressure. So it was very stressful, timing and deadlines. It was all different. But we had these wonderful times when some principal of a small school wanted to do something special for the grads and called us on a heartbeat. And one of our special projects, and Kat, answers a call, and we're hiring artists to go to children's houses to paint murals with their names in them on their driveway, for the whole graduating class. There were things like, how do we do this? Well, we'll just figure it out, because it's too wonderful an idea not to do it.
Yeah.
And the artists, like what I'm saying is, the artists would say yes, even though there's just this much money to do it, so that kind of thing. And I think Kat could talk a lot to that, to how challenging this whole process was as well.
Kat, that sounds like a throw to you for sure.
Yeah, it definitely 2020, even 2021 has been a challenge, and we just had to roll with it and think and brainstorm. But that is one of the strengths of Lightbringer Project, of Tom and Patty, is that you hit a wall and you go, okay, now what? And they've been through so much in the last 3 decades plus that nothing really is too daunting. And they just, let's go, let's do this. And I think that is contagious for all of us. Having to come up, because our events like Chalk and Doodah and LitFest Pasadena are in person, the challenge in 2020 and even now in 2021 has been how to create engagement when you are doing something virtual. And so that was quite a challenge with last year's virtual Chalk Festival that we put on. But we got people from all over the world. Instead of them having to come to Pasadena to create Chalk, we got people sending us progress pictures from India and Canada and Japan. And we have an age max age minimum for being in person. But because it was virtual, we were, we had grandkids and, young kids drawing their first chalk murals, and we shared them. And in the film that we just created and aired this last Sunday, we have a whole segment on the 2020 virtual festival last year. And it's very moving because we do have things about COVID in it. We have things about, the Black Lives Matter marches and the social issues that were going on at that time. And so it's very, very meaningful. We learned a lot. I've learned a lot of new skills over the last year, and it's been good. I mean, I definitely miss everyone being in person. Can't wait for October to have the Chalk Festival in person. But I feel that we have done a very, very good job between last year's virtual Chalk Festival, the Doodah film that we made, and the live stream Lit Fest that we just had.
Yeah.
And the exhibition of high school work in the virtual museum.
Yes, that's right. That's true.
Well, certainly for years now, we have heard that funding for the arts has been diminishing. And more recently, there has been a significant financial impact to businesses and programs across the nation as a result of the economic slowdown that has been brought on by this pandemic. How has Lightbringer been affected? Has there been financial difficulties experienced, a reduction in funding? Have there been grants? Was there actually a light, forgive the use of the pun there, at the end of this tunnel?
Instead of a train approaching?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of the train.
Instead of a train, yeah. We're doing well. I won't say it's been easy. I think what you have to do is kind of shape shift your finances and your budget, because then you go, oh, we can't do that. That was a revenue producer. And then we can't do this, and that cost us some money. And then it kind of washes out in a way. It's definitely was more depreciating, obviously, not being able to be out live and in person and doing the things we do. However, there was also COVID relief that was very generous for the arts. Both the state of California, the California Arts Council, Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture, and the city of Pasadena made available through its Cultural Affairs Division, made available some funding to be able to make up for those revenues lost. So we definitely took up that opportunity and were able to access some of those funds and stay stable. You know, the ship still sails into the sunset, into the sun, not the sunset, but it sails, you know, out of that storm of COVID that I think affected so many small businesses. So that was really helpful. I know a lot of the other nonprofit organizations, particularly those in the performing arts, were really hurt. And I think the COVID relief monies that were available definitely kept people alive. So, you know, we don't want to do that again and rely on that, but we're thankful for it.
I see everybody nodding in agreement there. And before I move on to another topic, I want to make sure we got a chance to give everyone an opportunity to say anything they'd like to on that subject. Well, I see everybody is quiet, so we're going to move on. And that's fine, because actually we've heard several projects mentioned here and there. I know I've heard Lit Fest, the Doodah Parade, among at least two of those, and I know there's a third program in there as well. And I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about each of those programs. And I don't know if this is really something that is more Kat's area of expertise. It sounds like that she's directly connected with the Doodah Parade and Lit Fest. So I think we're going to go back to you, Kat, in that I would like for you to tell viewers at home a little bit more about these programs, what they are, and how they've gone through the pandemic, and what you hope for them in the future.
Okay, so I guess, and Tom and Patty, you could correct me if I'm wrong. What I would say is that Lit Fest Pasadena, free literary festival, And we have the Pasadena Chalk Festival, which is a free public event. And we have the Pasadena Doodah Parade, which is a quirky parade. So those are Lightbringer events. What Angelina does is the programs. Angelina does the school programs, the arts and education program. So for LitFest Pasadena, the Pasadena Doodah Parade and the Pasadena Chalk Festival, those are events, and primarily that's what I focus on. And yeah, and what to say about those? I mean, the thing is, Lightbringer is about arts and education, but it's also about joy, and it's about expression, and it's about supporting artists, and that's whether they're visual artists or literary artists, and how to bring that to the public. So whether it's the fun Doodah Parade, where, yeah, it is kooky, but one of the most creative things I've ever seen, or the LitFest Pasadena, which is a small free literary festival where we try to local and further flung and more well-known authors to the public. And one thing that was different with having a live stream program for this past May for LitFest Pasadena was that we are a small nonprofit, so we don't have the type of money to be able to fly in best-selling authors, but we could reach out to them for this live stream event that we just did because we couldn't be in person. And that was an upside. That was definitely an upside. And we just kind of went for broke. We just, tried to reach out on Twitter or whatever. And a lot of people, surprisingly enough, responded, and we got some really well-known good authors. Next year when we go back in person, it's, we just, you're just trying to build it every year. Whatever event it is, you're trying to build it every year, bring a little bit of a different nuance to it, something new, something exciting, something engaging, and just bring it more to the public. So whether they're people who just want to admire a chalk mural, or someone who is an aspiring author, or someone who just wants to create a crazy float or put on a crazy costume and walk in a parade. So I don't even know if that answered the question.
That's really good. I think it's about, on that level with the events, it's about, creating these community gathering points. And I think there's something that comes a little bit different out of each one of those three. But I think, it's about, I love what somebody said one time, thinking of community as a verb instead of a noun. And
Yeah.
people out and about together in motion, and I think it's exciting in whatever form it takes. So.
Well, and Tom, to add on to that, because one of the things with, besides the live stream for this past LitFest Pasadena, we had pre-recorded interludes that our editor put together because we wanted to involve as many regular LitFest participants as possible. And a lot of them are poets and readers. And, but we were having live stream panel discussions. So we came up with the idea of interludes, and they were pre-recorded, and we put them in between the live stream panel discussions. And so, and I don't know if I told you, and Tom, Patty, I don't know if I told you this, but we got the LA Poet Laureate, Lim Thompson. She was introduced to me by a local poet, Gerda Govine Ituarte. And because of LitFest, they're now planning something else because they had watched Jervy Turvalon's panel discussion, Writing While Black. And so now they're working on something else. And so to me, that's part of what I love about Lightbringer, is that our events and our programs aren't the end all. They're not the be all end all. We are trying to create this community and help people meet each other, and things bloom from it. Just like Angelina was saying, so we have Lit Fest Pasadena authors who are now going to kids in the classroom. We have Chalk Festival artists who have gone to the classroom. So there's a lot of crossover too. And that's special.
It's interesting as we're talking, and kind of, I'm thinking, we were talking about Lightbringer Project, and Joe asked a kind of interesting question. It's almost like, how do you get your arms around it all?
Yeah.
And it is really
True.
Yeah, it is true. And it's kind of like, and we do, because we get it done. And so but to describe it is a whole other thing, and I think it's an unfolding process. The more that we're all talking, you keep seeing this and hearing this unfolding process, and it continues to do that. And it's just the nature. And that goes back to Patty talking about organic growth.
Yeah, we all saw the fireworks. It's one firework, and then they have little extensions, and then they spark, and that goes on and on.
And hopefully it doesn't blow up.
Yeah.
But we can handle it. If it does, we can handle it.
Yeah, and it does turn into a grander party. Look what we made.
Well, because for example, when I first came on to help with Lit Fest, and then I moved on to help with the Chalk Festival and then the Doodah Parade, I didn't really know about the Lightbringer Project school programs. So, so Patty and Angelina had come up with a little tea time Zoom that we would do. We would try to do it every Thursday. That didn't always work, but it was neat. It was really good for me coming on board to kind of hear what was Angelina doing. And now, as I've gotten a little bit more involved, and even just with organizing or whatever, it's like, it is kind of hard to describe Lightbringer in a sentence. It's amazing what Tom and Patty have been doing for all these decades. It is absolutely amazing.
We need a ride along, like the police have the ride along.
Yeah.
Oh my God! We'd like to announce Lightbringer ride along. There will be a charge for the VIP seats on the path.
Absolutely.
But one of the things I want to say, I think it's really interesting. Like these jobs that we have, what we do, we were not necessarily raised nor educated to do these jobs. Okay. We made these jobs up. Okay. And we kind of craft them and shape them and everything like that. But what's amazing about it is how good everybody is at the job they created. Like, for instance, Kat, we said, you're special events and special projects. And then we kind of, and I'm going to be honest, Patty and I are, do you think she really wants to do events? And who wants to do events? Nobody's good at events. Nobody's like really.
No one wants to do that. Let's give it to Kat.
No, so we said, exactly. It was like that. And Kat, it turns out, is like an event, like maven. She's really good at events. Angelina in the classroom, she's just a gift to the classroom. Yeah. Patty, who I met at the Espresso Bar writing bad poetry, I never would have imagined managing a nonprofit organization, and myself doing this either, like fundraising and doing these things, these jobs you never imagined doing. And then you just find out, oh, wow, I can hit a backhand. I am good at this.
Well, and the amount of information that Patty Hurley has in her brain is absolutely astounding. I mean, even just putting together the Chalk film that we just released. I mean, she can look at a photo and go, oh, that was that year by so-and-so. And it was located. And I'm like, huh? You're talking like 2.5 decades ago. She knows it all.
Well, in a moment ago, when I was asking about the what turns out to be the special events, because Kat was very adamant that there is a distinction between the special events and the programs. She mentioned that Angelina is in charge of all of those programs, and I would like to give some equal time to Angelina to go more in depth on the programs of the Lightbringer Project in these last few minutes of the program.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we have multiple programs. So we have the Room 13, which Patty and I spoke to, which is an open art studio at high school, middle school, and elementary school in Pasadena Unified. We have LA Futures, where we connect creative industry and agencies, different advertising agencies and content creators with graphic design academies throughout Los Angeles. We have our partnership with Pasadena High School Arts Academies. And for that, we do a variety of different programming, such as, interactive experiences at different workplaces. We do an internship program where we place Arts Academy juniors going into their senior year who apply for the internship into different summer internships in different creative industries. So it could be, we have, theater community partners, we have, music community partners, we have graphic art studios who participate. We have, just the gamut of different genres of creative industries participating when we place all of these interns into these summer internships with a variety of different community programmers in community industry connectors in Pasadena and outside of it. So that's a really big one that we do. So LA Futures, and then the in-school programming, which happens throughout the year, which is the different. So each school kind of has its own. I don't really know how much to go into it, but each school has its own programming points. So you'll have one school that will have a panel in the summer and spring, and then you'll have another school that will have a master workshop in the summer, and then a job shadow day in the fall. So it's kind of customizing the program to the needs of each school and creating coming up with fresh ideas each year to keep it fresh for the kids and the educators and everyone. And so those are the major. And then Expressing Feelings Through Art, which is a county-wide art competition, which Kat spoke to earlier. And we, select the winners for that. And the first place winner gets a class to go to Art Center, complimentary class to go to Art Center. And then I believe the first 3 places, they get cash prizes as well for their art. And then usually we exhibit at the Art Center campus, but this last year was virtual due to COVID. And I think that's all of them. Oh yeah, sorry, and then Local for Lit LA, which is our literary arts journal, which I spoke to earlier, which is local authors and artists published in a literary journal, which we then bring into classes primarily within South LA. And so the writers go and they talk about their stories from the journal. They also talk about how they came to be a writer, what the writing process is like. Really helps to kind of demystify it all. For a lot of students, it's their first time meeting a living writer, because a lot of the texts they read in school are people who are deceased. So it shows that, it's still relevant, and that it's oftentimes writers and voices that aren't often represented, underrepresented communities and stories. And so it really helps to create a platform for dialogue around all of that, which is really, really cool. And it's basically helping to get students interested in reading and writing and help to increase literacy rates, which is an issue in schools with students reading below their grade level, and helping to create an interest and passion for reading and create lifelong learners. So yes, I believe those are all the programs. Yeah.
All right. Well, and that's quite a list. So now perhaps the most important question is how can someone get connected with the Lightbringer Project? Do you accept donations? Are there benefactors? If someone wants to learn more about the program, how does one connect with Lightbringer?
I can tell you that you can go to www.lightbringerproject.org, just like it sounds, Lightbringer Run Together Project.org. And of course, donations are really important to us. Every year, every nonprofit has to start over again. And it's you have to start over and figure out if you're the music center to the smallest nonprofit. The music Center has to figure out how to make the chandeliers work, and we have to figure out how to get enough supplies and any of the resources that we need to bring inside the classroom. So we always appreciate donations. And I'm going to say something that may sound weird, but I'm going to take a chance and say it. And I heard somebody else say this, so it's something I'm appropriating. The cause is awesome. There could be no greater cause than to help these young people get where they need to be. They have a lot of challenges behind the scenes at their homes, in their lives, in their neighborhoods, in our world. And then COVID comes along. And schools don't have ultimately a huge amount of resources in our public schools. So the mission is golden. The users are golden. But also, I want to say it's important to invest in us. Invest in us because of who we are, because we mean it and we'll get it done.
That's certainly a very, very deep thought there, a very good appropriation. And with that in mind, we only have a couple of minutes left. I would like to give everybody on the panel an opportunity to express any final thoughts that they might have before we're out of time. And again, we only have a couple of minutes left. You know what, I think we'll go to Patricia, because I think Tom just gave us his thoughts.
Yeah, well, thank you. I was so moved by that. I basically would also like to just hope that the community continues to be there for us as well, as volunteers at our events. Also, if there are many people out in the community that are artists that we don't know yet, and we'd like to meet them, we'd like them to be a part of what we do. And of course, yeah, the monetary donations are so important because we could expand if we had them. So we could add more people and do more with our programs. Everything is set, but everything can grow. And with growth comes more outreach to more kids and more community members and better quality and this and that and the other things. So yeah, I just would say spread the word, help us spread the word, follow us. And Kat, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I think that's pretty good. There's a lot to look at. So yeah, go to lightbringerproject.org and take a look at all of the programs and all the different events. A lot of the events have their own websites, which you can find as well. And come out in person in October and come to the Chalk Festival and volunteer. And again, if you are an artist, and whether you're an artist in the literary realm or in a different medium, get in touch, introduce yourself. We welcome you, and we'd love you to be involved.
Well, and with that, I think I'm afraid we've run out of time. I would like to give my most sincere thanks to Kat Ward and Angelina Coppola, Patty Hurley, and of course, Mr. Tom Costin for joining me this evening. It has been very, very enlightening, and we look forward to all of the great events that you just spoke of and more to come. For our viewers at home, if there are topics that you would like to see addressed in our program, you can email them to us at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org, and we may include them in a future broadcast. Until next time, this has been Arroyo Live. I'm Joe Carbonetta. Thank you for watching, and good night.